Welcome into the Inside Scoop. I am your host, Josh Newberg, and we are live from Nashville, Tennessee. Today's January 1st. Happy New Year. New year, new recruitments. You guys are tuned into the Inside Scoop, and we had a great time last year in 2024, but 2025 is going to be our year. So we are going to get to it. Right now, we got the final days of the transfer portal to cover. We got all-star games going on in Orlando and next week San Antonio. We'll have coverage of all those. We got Steve Wiltfong on hand. We got Chad Simmons. But today's show, I want to talk some Alabama recruiting. You know, there's all these rumors about Jalen Milroe. Is he going to stay or is he going to go? We're going to ask Tim Watts about it, and also what's next for Alabama at the quarterback position. Michigan. We're going to talk a little Michigan with E.J. Holland. He was down in Orlando covering Zahir Mathis. He's one of the top targets still on the board for the Wolverines. Also, a five-star offensive tackle could help out Michigan as well. And then we're going to go into the most shocking recruitments of the 2025 cycle. So, big show for you guys today. Let's get to it. Alabama season comes to an end. It didn't exactly end the way that they wanted to, but all in all, Kalen DeBoer's first year in Tuscaloosa was a success. Now, we got Tim Watts from Bama Online in this video. I want to kind of talk about the quarterback position moving forward. Also, the 2025 class that they signed, there's some chances that some of these guys are going to make an immediate impact. We're going to cover that. But first, Alabama fans, do me a favor. It's a new year. We're here talking Alabama recruiting all year round, so hit that subscribe button for me. All right, let's bring in Tim Watts, Bama Online. It's been busy for you, Tim. Yesterday after the game, Andy Staples wrote an article kind of insinuating, and I think there's been a lot of rumors, that Jalen Milroe is not going to be back at Alabama next year. Most likely the NFL. It could be a transfer portal. Tim, what are you hearing on Jalen Milroe?
Yeah, just speculating, and also going off the educated speculation, I guess is what I'd call it. Is that I don't think the expectation is he'll be back next year at Alabama. I think it would be a no-brainer saying that he would go to the NFL, except the day of the NIL. There's some desperate teams out there for quarterbacks. Somebody could make him a crazy offer. Again, I'm purely speculating, but I think the people close to Alabama believe he's going to the NFL. It's just time for him to take that next step, go to the next level, and move on.
And that leads me to moving on, and it could be a move to five-star quarterback Keelon Russell, who right now is participating in Orlando at the Under Armour game. Steve Wiltfong, Chad Simmons, and everybody's down there. Gatorade Player of the Year, industry's number 2 ranked overall recruit. And he did an interview with Steve Wiltfong yesterday, and he said something that kind of jumped out at me. And it said that, Alabama wants him to come in and be the quarterback ASAP. So, of course, he's having a great week down in Orlando. But do you really believe that Keelon Russell could come in as a freshman and start at Alabama?
I don't think it's unheard of for somebody to do that. I think the odds are against them based on how good the SEC is, how quick you got to learn, how fast the game moves. Now, however, he is going to be here in January, so he's going to get that spring. And I think spring will tell us a lot more about him and where he fits in. And also Ty Simpson's been there 3 years. He's not going to give the quarterback position up easy. Got Austin Mack there. What I will say is I think you're going to get a full-fledged quarterback battle. The last time we saw this, to me, was when Bryce Young and Mac Jones were in a similar situation where Bryce was coming in as the number 1 quarterback in the country. Mac Jones had been there for several years, came in and battled. Mac won that job. So I think you're going to see a similar battle. As far as Keelon goes, I'm a recruiting guy, so I'm always looking to see the freshman play. I think he has all the merits to be in contention for that starting job. I'm not sure anybody signed a better quarterback than Keelon this year. He won basically every award, tore up everything he's done. Obviously, Underwood at Michigan is in the debate. There's no doubt about that. He's ranked the number 1 quarterback. Now, I'm not sure anybody did more to help himself this year than Keelon Russell.
All right, yeah, and Keelon Russell checks in Orlando at 6'4", 180, and through 2 days of practice, he is as good as advertised. So we'll be keeping an eye on him. But a couple other guys I want to talk about on the offensive side of the ball that seem like really good evals by the Alabama staff. Both of them on the offensive line, Michael Carroll and Jackson Lloyd. There's a lot of talk coming out of this Michigan game about Alabama's offensive line. Could Carroll or Lloyd make an early impact up front?
I think Michael Carroll's come to Tuscaloosa with bad intentions. I think physically he's got the tools you want, the mindset. I mean, if you watch this highlight film, there's a lot of moms, cussing at him. He is whooping their sons' butts a few times. Very aggressive, physical. Jackson's the same way. I mean, they've got that good kids off the field, nasty on the field, which is what you want to see from an offensive lineman. But both of them have that finish in them. Jackson's going to be the most interesting long term to me. This is going to be the first time he only focused on football. He played basketball, was actually pretty good. He played baseball, was actually pretty good. This is his first time focusing on football. Looks like he's added some really good weight. He looks like an NFL first-round tackle pick physically. But Michael's the one I think you have to watch the closest because I think he's coming in. You got Tyler Booker leaving. I think Carroll's coming in, like I said, with bad intentions, and he's a bad man.
All right. The season that Ryan Williams had just doesn't come around all the time. But watching Latsier Brooks throughout the year, I mean, he was like a human highlight reel every Friday night, putting up these catches, these numbers. Do you think he's going to factor into that wide receiver rotation once he arrives?
I think, you mentioned earlier really good evaluations by this staff, and I think they did some of the best evaluations in the country. We've already talked about Jackson Lloyd, who was a 3-star, Keelon Russell, 3 or 4-star SMU commitment, and then, of course, Latsier Brooks. And, I still think people are waiting to catch up on him. But, I said this early on when I saw him. He reminds me of Waddle, and I'm not saying he's Waddle or anything else, but his skill set, and everybody seems to have rewritten history where Waddle was some 5-star can't miss. No. He played small school football just like Latsier Brooks did. He's extremely fast. He's shorter. Wide receiver, just like Brooks is. There's some similarities there. They got that escapability. They got that waggle. They can take a short pass and take it long. They got the speed to beat you deep. Just a guy that did a lot of really good things. I was hoping to see him at an all-star game. He decided not to play on that bigger scale, but the guy's a homebody. I don't think he took any other visits. I barely visited Tuscaloosa. He just loves football, and that's what his life's about. But yeah, he's a guy I think is going to be hard to keep off the field, whether it be special teams, reverses, getting him on there. I do think the Alabama wide receiver room will be better next year than it was this year, maybe the best you've seen in a few years. But I do think he's going to bring a skill set that they like and they're going to find use for.
All right. Before we get out of here, give me a sleeper from this class. I mean, it's tough because we know so much about this Alabama recruiting class, but who's somebody maybe the fans or the media is sleeping on that could come in and make an impact?
I really like Marshall Pritchett. I mean, he's not really a sexy recruit from the fact he's a tight end, but I mean, the thing you like about him is he's that big guy. He's very similar to Caleb Odom in a lot of ways, probably not as fast as Caleb was, who was recruited at tight end, but he's big. He's filled out really well. He catches the ball in traffic. He goes across the middle. Very aggressive. I think he's looked pretty good so far in the All-Star game this week. I'm looking forward to see if he can get some touches. But the thing I like about him, he's got the size, he's got the catch radius, but he's also a willing blocker, and I think that's going to be big for Alabama and the offense they want to use. Also, we've seen Kalen DeBoer this year and in the past really use that tight end position. They also signed Caleb Edwards, so they got pretty much an inline guy and a guy that can be that flex tight end, the best of both worlds.
All right, Alabama fans, talk to us. Who do you think is going to be the starting quarterback at Alabama next year? And also, what subliminals is Tim trying to send with that sweatshirt that he's wearing today? Let me know. Comment section below.
This is the wire, baby. Omar. Respect.
Let's talk a little Michigan recruiting. The season comes to an end on a high note, and you know what? They're just not done with the 2025 cycle. There's only a couple teams out there that are still recruiting in 2025, and Michigan's one of them. And they have some big targets still remaining on the board. Very important. That's why we got EJ Holland from the Wolverine on this episode, and we're going to kind of go behind the scenes of these remaining targets and also find out if this momentum is going to carry over to 2026. I think it will. But first, Michigan fans, these are exciting times. Smash that subscribe button for me. We're going to be here talking Michigan Wolverine recruiting all year long. So jump on board and hit subscribe. All right, let's bring in EJ Holland from the Wolverine. Now, EJ, two main targets still remaining in that 2025 class. We're going to talk 5-star offensive tackle Tai Haywood and also 4-star edge Zahir Mathis. But when it comes to Tai Haywood, and he's committed to Alabama, I guess, but no experts think that he's going to sign there. Who do you think Michigan's biggest competition is for Haywood?
Yeah, definitely. I think the Tai Haywood recruitment is extremely interesting because it's all going to come down to NIL. I mean, I think this is a as big of an NIL recruitment as you can get. Obviously, Michigan has to get him on campus just to get familiar with the program. He's never been to Ann Arbor, so just getting a first look will be somewhat important. But at the end of the day, I think it comes down to who's willing to pay. Obviously, Michigan wasn't afraid to do that with Bryce Underwood. That's the biggest reason they were able to secure his flip away from LSU during the early period. Heading into the late period, Tai Haywood is by far the biggest target left on the board. And I think they are willing to put together a package that is extremely competitive and, right up there with anybody willing to enter this NIL race. With Haywood, I think Texas Tech is probably the other school to watch here. They presented an NIL offer during the early period, and I was told it wasn't quite on par with Michigan's, but it appears that the Red Raiders have kind of refined some things and are making an even bigger NIL push. So, we'll see if that sways the momentum away from Michigan. I don't think Alabama is in this race at all, even though he's still a verbal commit. I think it's just, on paper, I guess he's a
Mm-hmm.
commit, but not
Right.
really. I think it is going to come down to Michigan and Texas Tech and maybe a surprise player too. Florida State has shown some interest. It wouldn't be surprising to see, maybe a Miami or an Oregon decide to throw their hat in the ring if they have money to burn. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of where things stand right now. It'll be interesting to see what his official visit schedule ends up looking
Right.
like. I do expect Michigan to get one.
All right. Yeah. Tai Haywood is the last remaining 5-star offensive lineman in the 2025 cycle. If anybody's going to get one, Tai Haywood's the only one available. And, if there was a breakout star for NIL this cycle, it would be Michigan and it would be Texas Tech. So it's no surprise that those two teams are battling it out for the last 5-star offensive lineman. Now, moving on to Zahir Mathis. You got a chance to see him up close and in person when you were in Orlando, Florida for the Under Armour games. Zahir Mathis, a decommitment from Ohio State, one of the top edges in the country that still goes unsigned. What did you learn about Zahir Mathis from Orlando?
Yeah, so Zaire is another priority for Michigan. Their top target on the defensive side of the ball heading into the late period. He has 3 official visits scheduled: Michigan, Florida State, UCLA. Now, Michigan's official visit was initially supposed to take place on January 10th. That has been rescheduled for January 25th. So that means Michigan will, as of today, will be getting that last visit. And, I think in a recruitment like this, where you're heading into the late period, where there isn't as much familiarity with some of these finalists, getting the last visit is huge. You want to have the last say. I think Michigan offers a lot to Zaire, not just with NIL, but just with edge production. I think that's something that's very appealing to him. There's going to be opportunity early on in his career to get in the rotation and get significant time. And like I said, just the development in general, I think is really strong for Michigan at the edge position. And, when you look at Michigan's class this cycle, they landed Julius Hawley, who's kind of a borderline 3-star, 4-star type of guy, but he's kind of a more compact edge. Michigan needs
Mm-hmm.
a taller, longer guy, and that's definitely what Zaire Mathis brings to the table. He's about 6'5.5", 230 pounds, kind of a lanky build, but can add some weight. But, Michigan has had a lot of success with players like Zaire Mathis. And plus, he's a former Ohio State commit. So it would be nice for Michigan to get a little jab there at their rival.
Yeah, definitely. We talked, you've been on this channel, and we've talked a lot about Michigan's recruiting momentum and whether or not the momentum from the end of this season in the portal and on the high school level is going to translate into more results in 2026. And already you see 2 top backs trending in Michigan's direction, Savion Hyder and Javian Osborne. Is this kind of an indicator of Michigan recruiting heading forward?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that Michigan has a lot of momentum on its side. The way they closed out the 2025 recruiting cycle, landing Bryce Underwood, flipping guys like Nate Marshall from Auburn and Jordan Young from Clemson, and getting a big signing day win live on ESPN with Nathaniel Wusu Boateng. So yeah, Sharon Moore's always been a really strong recruiter. He's arguably been, the best recruiter on Michigan staff, even as the head coach. So I think that recruiting shouldn't be an issue. These guys are young, they're energetic, they want to and have a passion for recruiting. And on top of that, they now have the NIL backing. So if Michigan really wants to win a recruitment, it has the funding to do that. Like I said, you saw that with Underwood. I think you could potentially see that with Tai Haywood. And I think a lot of recruits are taking notice. Obviously, Michigan ended the season strong, beating Ohio State. They got a win over Alabama in the bowl game. And I think, Michigan has the lead for, a handful of top end 2026 targets, including the running backs you mentioned, Savion Hyder and Javian Osborne. And if you're a running back, I mean, Michigan is a school you want to go to. So, and they've shown the ability to utilize two backs over the years, from Blake Corum and Hassan Haskins to even, this year with Kalel Mullings and Donovan Edwards. So I think Michigan's a very appealing option for Hyder, Osborne, and several other, highly touted recruits. Jackson Cantwell, 5-star offensive lineman, was also at the Under Armour game, just visited Michigan. I think, they're definitely in the mix with him. Brock Harris was another Under Armour All-American, top 100 tight end out of Utah. Those positions, offensive line, tight end, running back, those are prime positions for Michigan to land top-end prospects.
Should be fun. I'm looking forward to covering Michigan recruiting in 2026. Michigan fans, talk to EJ and I. The Wolverines currently have the number 9 ranked class in 2025, and it could go up depending on what Tai Haywood does. But what are your expectations for 2026? Let us know. Comment section below. Let's talk about the most shocking recruiting moves of the year. There's been a lot, actually. Now, we're talking about the year of 2024, but it's the recruiting class of 2025. Don't get that confused. We all follow recruiting. We understand what we're talking about here. So we're going to get into it. What were the most shocking recruiting moves of the year? Well, it started off fast, right? Nick Saban retires. That happened about January 10th. We saw Julian Sayin opt out. He was the 5-star quarterback that was signed, starts practicing with Alabama during the bowl, like puts the uniform on, puts the helmet on, does it all. But then Nick Saban retires and he opts out to Ohio State. Of course, we've seen more opt-outs, but back then, way back then, less than a year ago, Julian Sayin opting out for Ohio State was major news. We also saw wide receiver Jamie French. He decommitted. That kind of changed the face of wide receiver recruiting moving forward. Of course, Texas ends up signing Jamie French, almost ends up at Florida, but Texas signs him. Now, we'll keep on moving. Let's talk about a couple recruits. Decory and Moore. How about that? We'll start with Decory and Moore. This was a shocker. The 5-star from Duncanville High School is the number 1 wide receiver in America, and he committed to LSU early, August of 2023, and he remained committed until about June. There was rumors swirling. He doubled down on his commitment. LSU fans did a victory lap. Then he decommitted. That was in early June. He took official visits to Oregon, Ohio State, LSU, Texas. And then in a ceremony that was kind of dragged out, but it was entertaining, he committed to the Oregon Ducks on July 4th. We all remember that celebration. And really, after his commitment to Oregon, it was over for Decory and Moore, and he signed with the Ducks. Let's stay at Duncanville High School. Keelon Russell, another one that's going to end up at Texas, right? No, neither Decory and Moore or Keelon Russell end up in state. They both leave the state. And early on, Keelon Russell was ranked as the 233rd prospect overall. And at the time, he committed to SMU. That was in September of 2023. Now, we reported a lot on Keelon Russell and whether or not he was going to flip to Texas or maybe another school. Of course, in the end, it was Alabama, but it was denied. No, he's not going anywhere. He's going to stick with SMU. We had Billy Embody on the show talking about it. Heck, I had Rhett Lashley in my DMs on Twitter denying that Keelon Russell was going to go anywhere. But in the end, he flips to Alabama. Well, not in the end. He did it on June 4th. And now Keelon Russell is the number 2 player overall, the number 2 ranked wide receiver. He's the crown jewel of Alabama's class. Nice try, SMU. Keelon Russell is heading to Tuscaloosa. Another big quarterback flip that kind of shaped the 2025 cycle, the 2024 year, was Duce Knight flipping from Notre Dame to Auburn. Now, Duce Knight tried to keep this one quiet in the spring and summer, but by the end of summer, we found out he was at Big Cat Weekend. After a few more denials, of course, but he was at Big Cat Weekend. And this was controversial because Notre Dame doesn't exactly allow commitments to take visits, but they did with Duce Knight because we thought he was going to flip his commitment at the end of summer because, he's at Big Cat Weekend. The rumors were swirling, but nope. This recruitment dragged on. He visited Auburn at least 4 more times during the season. Notre Dame, none. And then October 2nd, Duce Knight flipped that commitment to Auburn. Now, Ole Miss tried. Lane Kiffin almost got Duce Knight, but in the end, he's heading to the Plains with Hugh Freeze. All right, another shocking development that changed this year's cycle was really a bunch of them. USC's decommit list. USC Trojans' decommitment list was as good as some signing classes. They suffered a lot of major departments. Now, yes, they did sign a great class, but look at some of these decommitments. Yeah, Julian Lewis, he was the big one in November. But the Trojans also lost 5-star Justice Terry, Isaiah Gibson, wide receiver Jerome Miles, top 100 safety Hilton Stubbs. He ends up signed with Florida. Offensive tackle Carday Smith, he's Colorado. Hayden Lowe, linebacker Ty Jackson, linebacker Jaden Perlotti. I mean, I could keep going. Cornerback Dominic Kelly, Shamar Arnaud, Dwayne Morris, Anquan Fagans. These are all top recruits that decommitted from USC. But it wasn't all negative with USC. They make the list for a positive reason as well. Let's talk about the flip of 5-star quarterback Henlong Street. Now, he's from Corona, California, Centennial High School, and he committed to Texas A&M as a highly touted 4-star. Great senior year. Then, late in November, flipped to USC less than an hour after Julian Lewis decommitted. So it was an absolutely crazy day for USC fans. Julian Lewis committed for more than a year, decommits. In the same day, they land Henlong Street, the number 4 ranked quarterback in America and the number 1 player in the state of California. So Lincoln Riley, in the end, gets his guy. All right, let's move on to another shocker. That's cornerback Naim Offord. Now, Oregon flipped the 5-star plus cornerback from Ohio State, but that maybe wasn't the biggest shock to me because I thought in the end he was going to go to Auburn. So despite Ohio State fans telling me for months that us talking about Naim Offord was clickbait, it wasn't. Now, he did commit to Ohio State on February 4th. He flipped his commitment on December 4th. The number 3 ranked cornerback is headed to Eugene. He's not headed to Auburn. He was one of the top players from the state of Alabama, but he's heading to Eugene. All right, let's talk about Dallas Wilson, who signed with Oregon, right? December 4th was signing day. Now, follow me here. On December 23rd, he asked out of his letter of intent, and now he's with the Florida Gators. So he commits to Oregon on January 17, 2023. Not January 17, 2024. January 17, 2023. And Oregon keeps a kid that was committed from 3,000 miles away, committed for 2 years. They even get him signed. That's all you can ask for Dan Lanning, right? And his staff. They get a prospect 3,000 miles away to remain committed to them, to sign through signing day. But then less than 2 weeks after signing day, he gets his release and flips to UF. Dallas Wilson, 5-star wide receiver out of Tampa, Florida, is a Florida Gator. Crazy. But not the craziest recruitment we witnessed. By far, the craziest recruitment in the year of 2024 had to be Bryce Underwood. 14 days before signing day, Michigan flipped the number 1 quarterback, the number 1 overall prospect that had been committed to LSU since January 6th. He spent more than 300 days committed to the Tigers. Numerous rumors were shot down. Everybody was speculating, but really in the end, it quieted down. I think once the season started and Underwood didn't take any other visits, take any trips, everybody just figured he was going to LSU. But Michigan flew under the radar. Rumors started swirling, but really only about a week or two prior to that flip that came 2 weeks before signing day. So the Michigan native is now, well, Michigan's playing right now, but already practicing with the Wolverines for their bowl game. So LSU's moved on, Michigan has moved on, but this is one of those recruitments that we're going to keep a bookmark in. Both teams will remember this one for a long time, and I'm sure so you guys. Now, that was probably the biggest surprise. There were some other recruitments that shaped 2024. You had Caleb Cunningham flipping from Alabama to Ole Miss. You had A.K. Deere, one of the top backs in America, going from Ole Miss to Alabama. Shamari Earls flipping from UGA to Michigan. Myron Charles flips from FSU to Texas. Joshua Moore from UF to Miami. Those were some more, but I'm probably leaving some out. What do you think was the most shocking recruitment of 2024? 2025 class. What do you guys think? Most shocking recruitment? Let me know. Comment section below.